Hi there, my name is Simon. I am the product manager for strings integrations here at Phrase. I'd like to talk to you about a new development we have created called the Repo Sync. What this is effectively the unification of functionality across the three repo options in strings, those being GitHub, GitLab, and Bitbucket. We wanted to create a consistent user experience, a single environment with which you can actually make your amendments and see the changes that you have created with your various connections. We wanted to make sure that the history is provided for all three options. We want to give you the ability to delete your syncs, and if we wanted to make any additional updates, we wanted to have it all in the same environment. So I think the best way to show you how this works is to give you a demonstration of its functionality. So what we're going to do is here in the integrations tab, if you scroll down to the different integrations, you can see GitHub Sync, GitLab Sync, and Bitbucket Sync. And if you were to click on Configure, it takes you across to the Repo Sync environment. Here you can see two different drop-downs, and I'll explain a little bit why there's two in a little while. But in both of them, you can see the drop-down for GitHub and GitLab. Here again, GitHub and GitLab. Shortly after this, we will have Bitbuckets included as well, but that's going to take another week or so before that's fully integrated. Let's make a demonstration, shall we? Now, before we make a start fully, we need to do a little bit of housekeeping. We have to make sure that our project and our repo information in GitHub are appropriately organized. So firstly, we want to make sure that we have the project ID information. Now, you can get this, here it is here, but you can get this quite easily by going into your project. Here we have Simon Repo GitHub test. You go to more, go down to project settings, API, and here is your file here, and you can copy this across. And now if we go across to our project, here we have the overall project. We have our .phrase.yml file, and we have our locale file, here being ch.yml. Let's have a look in the main project YAML file. Right here at the top, we have the project ID. Now this is the project ID that you saw over in here. We copy that across, we paste this into here so it connects to the correct project. And we want to make sure that the source file is the appropriate locale file here, which you can see over here, ch.yml. And we want to make sure also that the update translations is set to true, so that when you make updates, it actually does. That's all the setup that you need from here. I just want to show you also the locale file. Here you can see three strings, random string 1, random string 2, and random string 3. And we want to bring these three into phrase strings. So going back over to here, we're going to add sync. We're going to go to GitHub. We're going to select the project we want to connect this to. So we're going to make sure it's the GitHub sync, not the GitLab test, which we'll do in a little bit just to show that it can be done. We're going to put our GitHub repo token here, which I'm just going to copy and paste in. Give this a moment to load. And you can select the repo. So we have our repo test here. And we'll add the main branch. And now down here we have the validate configuration option, which is a really helpful resource. You can click on it and it'll tell you if your configuration is accurate. Basically, it means that it's going to refer to the actual file and make sure everything is connected correctly and that there aren't any errors. And if there are any errors due to the setup not being configured accurately, it will tell you what those errors happen to be. So it's a nice resource for making sure that everything is working as intended. We'll click Save. And now the Repo Sync environment changes. You can actually see the project, the repository, the status, when it was last imported and when it was last exported. And if you hover over, you can actually see the options to push, pull, see the history, and also edit, deactivate, and delete. When you start having quite a lot of projects, eventually you'll have the pagination option down the bottom here as well. But right now we are only going to see a couple of these, so I don't think you need to stress about that too much. Let's do a pull from GitHub. We'll click Import. Give it just a moment, and you can see successfully started GitHub Sync. This might take a few seconds. And then if we click on the history, you can see that it was successful. One file has been imported less than a minute ago. If we now go over to the project itself, and we have a look at our languages, you can see that the ch now has a full bar here indicating 100% translated. And the reason why it is marked as 100% translated, if we click on that, we can see random string 1, random string 2, and random string 3 have been brought into this environment. So working as intended. We can also make changes here and then push those back to GitHub. So let's change random string 3 here to random string 4. We save it. And then back over here. From here, we can actually have the ability to run the sync or to import, I should say, to run the sync, either in import or export. We can do this from the main environment as well, but now that we're actually in a dedicated area for just this one particular connector, let's run it here. Let's do an export to GitHub. Give it just a moment. Your locales will be exported to your GitHub repo as a pull request in a few seconds. You can see that it's marked as running. And if we do a refresh now, success, and you get a link to the actual repo. So we can click on that. You can see that there's been a file change in the pull request section, and you can see the reflection of that here being from 3 to 4. You can review the changes and you can commit those however you would like, or you can obviously cancel those if that is not to your preference. That is the situation as it stands. It's working as intended, but you now have the ability to make adjustments in both ends. And again, if you were to go back to your project and change the YAML file, the locale file from here, and push that again, it would then reflect that back in phrase. So yeah, working as intended. We can also do this with GitLab, so I'll just show you the slight difference there. We'll add a sync. We'll go to GitLab. Select the project. Let's do it to the GitLab test. We'll enter our GitLab repo token. Select our repository. We only have the one here and just the main branch. We'll validate the configuration. All working as intended. So we save that. And as I mentioned before, over in GitLab, we also have exactly the same situation. We have our YAML file, the project ID being different because I wanted to push this to a different project, but if you wanted to push to the same project, that is also an option. Again, setting update translations to true and making sure that you're connecting to the right destination, which here again is ch.yml. If we have a look at that file, we have ch.yml. And let's make a change. Let's change this so it's not just 1, 2, and 3. We'll edit the single file and we'll change number 2 to number 5 so it's different from previous. We'll commit the changes. Your changes have been committed successfully. So now if we go back to our repo, we can see that we've never made any connections, but we want to pull in those items. So we click import. Here comes the sync. And we go to the history. See a success. So if we have a look at the actual project, right now we're in the wrong project, so we'll just go over to projects here and switch over to GitLab. And over to languages, you can see that it's marked completed. Go in there and we can see 1, 5, and 3. Because we made that change from 2 to 5, we can see that reflected here. And maybe we did that by mistake, so we want to bring that back. We want to make that correction. So we'll save that. Saves all done. We go here, we run the sync, we export to GitLab. Being pushed, marked running, do a refresh, it's successful. We go over here and we'll see the merge request. Give it just a moment to load. And you can see the changes being represented here, which you can then decide to commit to or get rid of if that's not your preference. You can see that it was 5, it's now back to 2. And that's the situation as it stands. We head back to our overall merge request, and we could commit that if we want to. So just do delete source branch in here, click merge. All done. Head back to our overall project, and we can see that the correction in the ch.yml file is back to 1, 2, 3. All working as intended. Now the last thing I wanted to show you is if we go back to our overall project environment, you can see both of these sitting here. If you are needing to make any changes, you can edit and you can make those adjustments as you require. Maybe you need to change the repo branch. Maybe you need to, well, whatever it is you need to do. But finally, again, if you wanted to delete something, you would then select either deactivate if you just want to pause it, if you've got a process that you would like to maintain later, or if you want to delete it, you have the option to do that here as well. And that is the process. Hopefully this has been helpful, but if there are any questions, please contact our lovely customer support team, and thank you for your time.